Welcome back to the channel, folks. My name's Shane. In today's video, we're checking out the Viltrox 20mm F2.8 prime lens for the Sony E mount. I've tested this lens out with the Sony FX3, A7SIII, and the FX30, and it's performed great. At the time of filming, the Viltrox 20mm F2.8 is priced at only $159. Usually when a lens is this cheap, it's riddled with compromises, but not in this case. Viltrox has made what I consider to be the best affordable 20mm prime lens for the Sony E mount. Before we get into it, I want to thank Viltrox for sending this out for the review. After testing some of the higher end lenses from Viltrox, I would have no hesitations using this for YouTube or a primary run and gun vlogging lens, and I'll explain why. Now, if you're new here, I'm mostly a video shooter, so this will be focused on the video performance of this lens. With that said, I'll also be talking photography a little bit later on, so stay tuned. First up, I want to showcase how much wider 20mm is from the standard 24mm field of view. Here's the Sony FX3 with the 24mm f1.4 G Master at f2.8. And here's the 20mm f2.8 at 2.8. Notice how much wider the Viltrox is, allowing you to see the fountain on the left. Putting this lens on my Sony FX30 over here, with the APS-C crop, I'm getting a 30mm field of view. The f2.8 aperture on APS-C still gives you more than enough subject separation and background blur. As you can see from this example, the image quality paired with the FX30 is something beautiful. Speaking of aperture, the entire range ranges from f2.8 wide open all the way down to f16. Furthermore, this lens is great for vlogging. Thanks to its compact size and wide field of view, you can get some really great results. Now let's take a look at this example. This is with active steady shot on with the Sony FX3, and the field of view is still wide enough. Now, if you plan on running your footage through Catalyst Browse, you can apply about a 10% crop or so to the image, but as you can see from this A-B comparison, after running it through Catalyst Browse, it's still usable. You can get a wider field of view to start with by turning active steady shot off when using Catalyst Browse, so let's take a look at an example of that for vlogging. If you have a modern Sony camera that supports Sony Catalyst Browse and you're happy running your footage through it, I think this will be a great choice. Let's talk about what we get in the box. The box comes with everything we need to get going, including the lens, rear and front caps, and a lens hood. We also get a little microfiber bag that Viltrox makes to keep their lenses nice and safe. There's a user instruction manual and also a warranty card. While the lens hood is fully removable, my only nitpick in terms of its build quality is it's just a little bit too easy to unlock. So yeah, it's definitely not as secure as some of the more premium lenses from Viltrox or lens hoods from other brands. Let's quickly cover the build quality. Weighing in at only 157 grams, this lens heavily reminds me of the Panasonic 9mm f1.7 or the 25mm f1.7, which is right here. Take a look at the size difference. This lens is even smaller than the 15mm f1.4 APS-C lens, which is insane for a full frame lens. Unsurprisingly, there's no aperture ring or autofocus manual focus switch on this lens, but at this price, I wasn't expecting it. I've mapped the joystick on the back of my cameras to switch between autofocus and manual focus anyway, so if you're using a lens without a switch, it's nice and easy to switch modes. The lens itself is all plastic except for the rear element, which is metal, so yeah, it's great to see that on the back. Now, this particular area on the back also houses the USB-C port. Speaking of the USB-C port, I updated to the latest firmware version before testing this lens. It was as simple as connecting the lens to the computer and dragging the latest firmware file into the folder that appeared on my desktop. That was it. I didn't even test the old firmware, but the latest firmware appears to work fine, and we'll talk more about my thoughts on it throughout the video. This lens comes loaded with a 52mm filter thread, so you can use this with a polarizer or variable ND or with step-up rings, whatever the case may be. Autofocus performance for video is solid, but not perfect. Shooting with either the FX3 or FX30 gave me almost flawless results with the odd glitch here or there, which I'll explain as we go. For the standard walk and talk to the camera test, the FX3 and FX30 performed excellently. I did find though I needed to set the sensitivity to 4 and the speed to 5 for the best results. With the speed and sensitivity set lower, the autofocus didn't respond like it would with native Sony lenses. As I mentioned, the autofocus is great, but it's not perfect. This example showcases what I mean. It basically tracks fine on this gimbal shot, and then it just loses focus for a moment and then recovers. This didn't happen every time or anything, but it's definitely worth mentioning. Testing the burst rate autofocus for photography also gave me a very high hit rate. For the best performance, I put a box right over Rhiannon's face, and the hit rate was very close to 100% accurate. It's great that the autofocus motors in this lens had no problems in this scenario. Again, I was not expecting it to perform this well given the budget nature of this lens. I found pulling focus manually, reliable, and repeatable, which is always a good surprise. The focus ring has a hair more tension to it, even over the 15mm f1.4, and you know what? I actually prefer how this feels. The tension is spot on. Now, the Viltrox focus ring is smooth to use, and it feels very much like a more premium lens. I also tested the Viltrox 20mm 2.8 for focus breathing. Now, focus breathing is where the edges of frame appear to zoom in and out when pulling focus from minimum to infinity focus. The great news is focus breathing is almost non-existent, which makes this a really great choice for shooting video. It has far less focus breathing than even my 24mm f1.4 G Master. The minimum focusing distance is rated at 19 centimeters, so get up nice and close to your subject. Shooting at or close to the minimum focus also allows you to achieve a nice shallow depth of field look. The bokeh is fairly smooth overall for video and photography. Again, at this price, I have no complaints in terms of the performance. The only time this lens shows its price is when it comes to Sunstars and flaring. Now, the Sunstars, in my opinion, are fine for the price of this lens, but they aren't anything special. I tried improving the Sunstar effect by stopping down from f9 to f12 or even f16, and the results were basically the same. Now, this Viltrox 20mm f2.8 is a bit hit and miss when it comes to flaring. The purple flaring is quite obvious and very blocky. This isn't a deal breaker though, again, because this is a budget prime lens. Given the lens flaring issue, I thought that it would suffer from a lot of chromatic aberration, but overall I'm really pleased with how clean the out of focus areas are. There's maybe a hair of purple fringing here and there, but it performed way better than I thought it would. I've had way more expensive lenses than this that have so much chromatic aberration, so I was very impressed. All right, let's wrap this video up. So for $159, this lens is insane value. While it doesn't have a manual focus, autofocus switch, or aperture ring, it excels in terms of form factor, handling, sharpness, and optical quality. With the exception of some artistic flaring, I think this is a no-brainer for anyone wanting a great wide-angle lens for video or photographic work. Please do me a small favor if you can. Please leave a thumbs up, comment down below. It really helps the channel get found. And if you're into camera reviews or lens reviews, don't forget to subscribe and also click the notification bell. And I will catch you on the next video. See ya.